Hey Alpha fam, Coach Jam here with another market update. Before we begin, I do want to say that nothing in these videos is financial advice. Everything's for educational purposes only. It's just my own analysis on the market. Also, if you're new to the Alpha Syndicate channel, if you could please give us a like, comment, and a subscribe, we really do appreciate the support. Let's get to the market, guys. So we kind of consolidated and chopped sideways during the weekend. We had a little bit of a move last night that was retraced during the UK session opening, which is totally normal. Honestly, I would prefer to kind of chop sideways during the weekend. I don't like when there's these massive moves because it does a couple of things. One, see big, massive CME gaps open up. We tend to close those. And honestly, guys, I don't really trust weekend pumps because they're very low liquidity, very low volume. So it's very easy for them to, swing prices in any direction. We do know that Michael Saylor was buying Bitcoin during the weekend, so that would also make sense depending on how much. He hasn't made the announcement yet, how much he bought. That would also probably make up for a reason why we've seen a little bit of a move during the weekend. But if you come over here on the 4-hour channel, guys, you can see Bitcoin doesn't look bad at all. If you come on some of the lower time frames, you can see it right here. We're just kind of chopping sideways after we've made this initial move up to about the 70s, but we're basically hovering around the $72,000 to $68,000 region right now. Just kind of chopping sideways. Looks pretty decent right here, guys. Honestly, we're going to wait for the U.S. market to open up. I'm interested to see the way that they move. If you look at futures was kind of weird because they opened up actually the other day pretty aggressive last night. And then they actually pushed back down. You can actually see it. You can see futures opened up pretty aggressive, came back down right here, and now it started to move back up again. Same thing for NASDAQ. It did the same thing. It had a pretty big opening and then pushed back down, and now it's starting to move back up as well. I'm interested to see the way the U.S. stock market opens up today, guys, because Friday was a massive day of the market because everything was going from a massive, everything was kind of free falling and then had that bounce. And Friday, everything ended the day significantly in green. So when you have these big, massive volume days, you tend to have some inefficiencies in some of these wicks. So it's totally normal once things cool down a little bit. Some of these algorithms come down, sweep some of these levels, sweep some of these buy orders, and then before, starting the continuation to the upside. Again, it's kind of interesting to see because there's been some other discrepancies I've been seeing too. Like last few days, Bitcoin dominance has made a big move back up, but then it started to reject again back down, which is kind of interesting to see because it literally came way down here and then came right back up to the 50, and you can see it's rejecting. We have a new weekly open that happened too, and you can see we rejected last week, which was very good rejection. I wanted to see this weekly candle close like this, and then even if you come over here to Bitcoin's weekly close, guys, you can see it was that massive wick that's sucking up. But again, we want to get this week to be green. We need to start moving the momentum back to the other side. Because if we don't, guys, what I don't want to happen is this. We had this massive bounce, and then all of a sudden, sell pressure starts coming in, and then people don't believe that this was actually the local bottom, and then you end up starting to see this thing drift back down. And that's what we don't want to see, guys. We don't want to see us go back down further. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I did watch something that was pretty interesting this weekend, and it does make a lot of sense why Bitcoin has been struggling so much basically over the last 6 months or so now. And it's because of the quantum computing threat, guys. This was something when I first got into crypto wasn't even discussed or talked about. And then about a year and maybe 2 years as I was on my crypto journey, this is when I started hearing rumors about it. And ever since then, guys, it's just definitely exponentially pushed faster and up further, because at one point we're saying like 20 years before quantum computing would ever become a threat. Now they're talking about 2028. And what's happening with these institutions that are adopting crypto right now is they're actually accounting for that risk inside. You have some people that are not allocating into Bitcoin until this problem is solved. You're even seeing some institutions and people withdraw, like I can't remember the name of him. He was a guy, I think he's the guy or the lead guy for the Fear and Greed. It's like a newsletter, and it's massive, and it's one that all the institutions read. The guy that is, I don't know if he's like the owner of it or an editor for it, but sold his entire Bitcoin position because of the quantum computing threat. And I think this is what's really, honestly, really hurt Bitcoin more than anything, because what's happening is you're seeing people stop allocating their portfolios, and they're actually reallocating that to things like gold until this is solved. Now, do I think it will get solved? Yes. I think it has to be a uniform thing. I think there's a big discussion that needs to be had behind it, but I think this is a big reason why Bitcoin's struggling as much as it has and hasn't had that chance to recover the way it should. So this is definitely something to be concerned about and something to keep an eye on. Miles talked about it in one of his videos, and he made some very, very good and compelling points in it, guys. But without going too far on a tangent, this is a thing that I think is really hurting the market right now. And honestly, guys, like what I wanted to see yesterday is a close above this 2.41. I wanted us to make a close above this on the daily and on the weekly, guys. And we didn't seem to get it. I think we did it on the weekly. I think we were like right there, but we didn't manage to get a close above it. So I'm not saying I'm super, super nervous because there's a couple of things that do look good, but I did want that daily close above it. But you can see this is on total market cap. You can see we had a fair value gap right here that we held exactly the way that we were supposed to. So if, as long as this level holds right here, if we want to come back down into this level and bounce out, something like this, and then bounce out of that level, that would be okay too. That would look perfectly normal to me as long as the fair value gap holds. If we start to show weakness at this point, which is we start to, maybe deviate under and then this doesn't hold, well, then there could be a discussion that maybe we're not going to hold this level and that maybe we are going to come back down to the bottom of this range. And that would be also something that would be kind of normal to see too, is one of these kind of double bottom patterns where Bitcoin comes back down, maybe drifts down to this range and then bounces out. All right. Not saying necessarily that's going to happen. I just try to deal with a set of probabilities and just looking at the general market and where I think things are going to be over the next week or two. We do have a little bit of data coming out this week. The big one is the unemployment. The thing with unemployment is I think if we see this go up, and I think there is a potential chance for it to go up. I think if we see this thing go up, I think that this is also going to help maybe bring the rate cuts in the next meeting on the table. We have a FOMC meeting in March, and the reason they've been holding off on not cutting rates again is because when they started cutting rates in September and October, the unemployment rate stopped going up and it stopped. It just stalled. So they were like, hey, okay, it's obviously working. Let's hold off. Well, we just had that the unemployment claims come in way higher than expected, guys. I think January's was like the worst labor market report that they've had in X amount of years. So the labor market is obviously still struggling, all right? And we know that Trueflation actually just came back. We can see on Trueflation, inflation just came to an even lower level than where it was at prior, which is actually crazy. It's at 0.68. When I first started using Trueflation and started utilizing this as like my independent source for inflation data, inflation was almost 4% then when Trump came into office. To see it's dropped this much is insane. So we know that inflation it's not something that the Fed can argue. So the only thing that they've been able to argue now is the unemployment stuff, because the inflation has to be as close to their 2% goal as possible, unless they're just completely lying about it, which, I wouldn't put it past them to fudge some numbers. But if the unemployment rate continues to get out of hand, the rate cuts are going to have to happen. And hopefully we can get some rate cuts prior to Jerome Powell leaving office. That would be better, because right now you can see even on Polymarket right now, guys, market's really not pricing in rate cuts, all right? And this is just something to keep in the back of your mind going over the next month or two, looking at this data, because if they're not pricing in rate cuts and we get it, then that could be, a potential, at least a catalyst in order to continue the move up. So if you can see, this has actually been slowly going back up. You can see it was at 7%. It peaked over here at 18. Now it's kind of hovering around 14. But let that unemployment data come out really, really skewed, guys, and I think we see this thing go up, all right? So with that being said, we're waiting for the U.S. market to open. This is going to be a little bit shorter video today, guys, because, again, we already knew this was going to happen. We've been, I think, very active in planning on this in these moves that have happened over the last, few weeks in the market. I'm very interested to see the U.S. open today, guys, because, again, that's going to have a big determination on if the weekend little move that we had gets completely retraced or if we do a continuation. I'm very interested to see. Again, even with Bitcoin, there's this level right here that I'm looking at very, very closely, which was there. We had one fair value gap right here, guys, on the 4 hour. And you can see we held that perfectly when we retraced into this level. This is the level that I don't want to see broken right now. If Bitcoin wants to retrace into this level, hey, that's perfectly okay. If it wants to come in and bounce, hey, that's great. But if this level loses support, guys, then the chances of us drifting lower are going to be significantly higher, and then we could get a move. Again, I said it the other day. I said, be prepared that we could, potentially, and I don't want to see this happen, could end up in a box, guys, where we're just like in a box for like the next few weeks, and then the box, wherever it lands, we just kind of chop in between this box. I do think that we see a continuation and we go back up and at least try to retest this 50-day at some point, but we could be in this box where we just chop for the next few months, and then finally, as we get closer to Jerome Powell getting replaced, I think that's going to be a major catalyst. People are going to start pricing in, future rate cuts and stuff. Then we break out of it. Again, it's kind of two scenarios. Obviously, with as big of a move down that we just had, along with as big of a bounce that we just had on Friday, I think the market's kind of on edge to see what happens today, if it's a continuation or if we move down a little bit and fill in some of these inefficiencies, guys. I'm taking things one day at a time. I'm watching this very closely. Also, if this is the first time you've ever landed on one of my videos, my name's Coach JM. I've been a digital asset investor for going on 5 years. I'm also the founder of Alpha Syndicate, and I also host the Crypto Talk workshops inside of Capital Club. And if you're interested in learning this stuff, guys, like how we combine the macro, the fundamentals, the technical analysis, click the link below, guys, and we'll see you inside.